Every summer, millions of people flock to Georgia's beautiful lakes for fun, for fishing, for a weekend getaway. But here's something wild. Most of them have absolutely no idea they're floating right over a secret history. A history of entire towns that have literally vanished from the map. Okay, let's dive in.
So let me just ask you this. When you're out there, kicking back on a boat or a jet ski, what do you think is actually down there, right under you? Because the answer? Well, it's not just water and fish. You are literally on top of a lost world. Yep, you heard that right. Entire communities. We're talking about the crumbling foundations of homes, old submerged roads, and even the forgotten graves of thousands of people who once lived and worked right there. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. And these aren't just one-off stories. Today, we're going to explore how this actually happens.
Now look, this is a phenomenon that's happening all across the country. But to really get our heads around it, we're going to zero in on three incredible and very different case studies right there in Georgia. Each one vanished for a completely different reason. One was drowned by force, another was buried by its own success, and one, well, is just fading away right now.
First up is Oscarville, and this is a town that didn't just fade away or get abandoned. No, it was wiped off the land on purpose and then deliberately drowned. It's a pretty harrowing story.
So, the story of Oscarville, it's a really tough part of American history. After the Civil War, it grew into this remarkably prosperous farming community built entirely by black families. We're talking schools, churches, about 1,100 people, a real thriving town. But then, in 1912, it all came to a horrifying end. White mobs terrorized the county in an act of racial cleansing, burning homes and driving almost the entire black population out. Their land was just stolen or abandoned. Fast forward a few decades, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers comes in, builds a dam, and creates Lake Lanier, flooding Oscarville's history forever.
And get this isn't just an old story from a history book. The proof is literally still down there. Divers and the like have actually reported finding the foundations of old buildings and even cemeteries, just sitting there in silence at the bottom of the lake.
Okay, so that's a story of a town destroyed by hate. But our next ghost town has a completely different, and frankly, a more ironic twist. This town wasn't a victim of violence. It was a victim of its own success.
So picture this. It's the early 1800s, and Skull Shoals is an absolute powerhouse. Seriously, this place had Georgia's very first paper mill, a massive 4-story brick textile factory. The place was humming. Over 600 people worked here, with homes and stores all powered by this big roaring river.
But that industrial boom came with a hidden price tag. The very cotton that was making them all rich would, believe it or not, be their downfall. All that cotton farming upstream just stripped the land bare of trees and plants. So with no roots to hold the soil in place, huge amounts of dirt and silt washed right into the river. Year after year, that mud literally buried the rapids that powered their mills, until one final massive flood in 1887 just covered everything.
I mean, that quote just says it all, doesn't it? They didn't run out of resources, they were choked by them. It was this perfect, tragic environmental chain reaction, all set off by their own success. It's a crazy lesson about the unintended consequences of progress.
So our first two towns are ghosts of the past, right? They're gone. But for our last story, I want to show you what a vanishing town looks like today, right now. This is Sparta, Georgia.
You know, walking through Sparta today is a really strange experience. On one hand, you see these gorgeous multi-million-dollar antebellum mansions from a bygone era. But then you look around and the streets just feel desolate. Just like Skull Shoals, Sparta's economy was all about cotton. But back in the 1910s, a plague of beetles wiped out the crops, and honestly, the town's economy just never bounced back.
And the modern-day reality is, it's stark. The average income in Sparta today is just $22,000 a year. Now, to put that in perspective, that is way below the national poverty line for a family of 3.
And with an average income that low, you can imagine what that means for the poverty rate. Demographers estimate it could be as high as 50%. That means half the people in town are struggling to get by, all while living in the shadow of this incredible former wealth.
This next statistic, this one reveals something really strange about what happens when a town's economy dies. Check out this demographic mismatch. The average age for men is 43, but for women, it's just 24.4. And here's why that happens. When the jobs dry up, young men often have to leave to find work somewhere else, while young women might stay behind. It's a statistical scar, a clear sign of a community in decline. So, okay, we've got 3 towns, all vanished or in the process of vanishing, but for totally different reasons. What do we learn when we put these stories side by side?
What these three stories really show us is that there's no single recipe for how a town dies. Oscarville was destroyed by pure violence and then erased by a massive federal project. Skull Shoals basically committed an accidental environmental suicide, a victim of its own success. And Sparta? Well, Sparta is just a slow fade, a community that's been withering away from over a century of economic neglect.
You know, these places are so much more than just cool ruins or sad statistics. Every single crumbling foundation, every vine-covered chimney, every empty storefront was once the center of someone's world. It was their business, their home, their vision for a hopeful future. These fading towns are a powerful reminder that progress is an incredible force, but it always leaves something or someone behind.
And that really makes you think, doesn't it? As we build new shopping malls and pave new roads in our own towns and cities, what stories are being covered up or just left to fade away? What forgotten history have you walked past today?